everyone can go back to their regular jobs. Welcome, and I think we have a quorum, is that correct? Good. I'm so glad to see all of you here today. How are you, Commissioner Perla? Well, let's just get started right away. First of all, are there any agenda modifications?
No, ma'am, no modifications.
And we're on to consent. So, move consent. Second by Commissioner Barfield. Who moved consent? Commissioner Maddox? All in favor of consent, say aye.
Aye.
All right, next. We're going to have a roll call vote on several agenda items and that are on this.
CIP amendments.
Yes, I'm going to turn this over to you to announce these things. But I have a question, and my question is, where do we ask for speakers, if there are any speakers? Do you want to ask on each bullet, or do you want to ask on the entire agenda?
We can ask for that input right now. I mean, to have them speaker cards, and if it's related to an agenda item, please identify it, and they can get a speaker card from Yolanda and provide it to her, if you would.
Commissioner Crowley, you have a problem with your microphone?
Mine is working as yours.
Yes.
Couldn't hear you very well.
I can't hear you very well. Oh, well, I will talk right into it. Microphone is my friend. All right, so we're on agenda item 4A. Do I hear a motion?
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Maddox and seconded by Commissioner Madison. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I believe we have to have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Van Camp.
Aye.
Commissioner Barfield.
Aye.
Commissioner Madison.
Aye.
Commissioner Crowley.
Aye.
Commissioner Dozier.
Aye.
Commissioner Lindley. Commissioner Maddox. Nick Maddox.
Aye.
Commissioner Sauls. Commissioner Miller.
Aye.
Commissioner Ziffer. We're finished.
I guess that would be a Z. So we're finished, since we reached the Zs, right? All right, the motion passes. The next is item number 4B. Do we have any speakers on this particular item?
Yes, ma'am, we have the Federal Highway Administration will give an overview of the certification process.
Great, thank
And
you.
then we need to vote on amending the regional mobility plan for the amendment. This is Carl McKiska. He's replacing Stacy Blizzard from the Highway Administration.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to have me here today. I'll give you an overview of the federal certification review process that was conducted over the past year, and I'll just use the PowerPoint as my outline. So, first, the team that was involved in the federal certification review, as mentioned, Stacy Blizzard was the Federal Highway Planning Contact for District 3 of Florida Department of Transportation. We've rotated duties. I'll be taking over for her. So that is why you do not see me on the list. But this was the federal team. And real quick purpose as to why we conduct these certification reviews, well, probably the quickest answer I can give you is it's required by Congress. It's in the law. But the deeper purpose of it is to ensure that the planning process is meeting the federal requirements. So we come in and it's essentially, you might think of it as an audit. So how does that actually go? We have 4 primary steps: the desk audit, in which we review all of your materials, a site visit in which we come in and interview staff, reach out to the public, to yourselves. There was a presentation at your board meeting. All of that is assembled and compiled into a final report, which has been issued, and then we do the closeout presentation, which is what I'm doing today for you. So, the purpose or the main objectives. Since federal transportation legislation in the 60s, there's always been reference to a 3C planning process in each transportation funding bill. We're making sure that that process is followed, that the process is multimodal. We're not going to focus solely on cars, solely on transit. This also includes aviation. We want to make sure that we're meeting the applicable federal laws, and we review the previous federal certification review. So, bumping right along here, we did discover a number of noteworthy practices. Those are shown in your agenda packet. I've summarized them here. These are the types of things that we see going on, and when we work with other MPOs, typically in other states, we will use this as an example of what can be done or what you should do, particularly if somebody, MPO, is having difficulties in a particular area, such as bicycle and pedestrian planning at the top of the list. We could use your practices here as that best practice. We had a few recommendations. These are not anything that we said, hey, federal law is not being met. That is not the case. We saw things that could maybe be improved to be a best practice. The corrective actions, there was one, and you actually are poised to take action on that at today's meeting and thus clear that up. So kudos to the staff for jumping right on this and getting it wrapped up quickly. We do appreciate that. So with that, this is a 4-year certification. Pending the wrap-up of this corrective action, we are certifying the planning process through June of 2017. And in summary, compliments to the staff for their efforts and for the work that's being done. And the Federal Review Team remains available to assist in any endeavors that the TPO may wish to undertake, or TPA, I'm sorry. And this is my contact information if you would have questions at a future point that you'd like to follow up on. I'd also be happy to accept any questions from you today.
Move the item.
Second it.
The item's moved by Commissioner Maddox and seconded by Commissioner Madison, and Commissioner Lindley has a comment.
Well, I just had a question. I saw a lot of the comments had to do with maybe not enough public access or public participation in various ways from the university communities, the disabled community. And I just wondered how we can, that there wasn't even any public attendance at the June hearing that you had in 2012. How can we emphasize that more? Are we doing some things to try to pick up the pace on getting the public involved in this before rather than after they see something happening and are annoyed by it? Which never happens, of course.
Well, and actually you bring up an excellent point. Commonly, when everything is going quite well, you do not get a lot of public participation. When there is a project that is controversial, you see a lot of faces, and generally some very unhappy ones at that. So that's not actually uncommon, unfortunately. In terms of the ability to reach out, staff will be obviously doing something in terms of coordinating. I think that'd probably be a question better for Harry to talk about how you will go forward from this point. I will say that the individual who reviews that section of the visit is very strict, very stern. So everything is noted there.
I should point out this is not necessarily a corrective action so much as it is that they think it ought to be broadened, and we're trying to address that through the next update to the regional mobility plan, and trying to increase that and expand our public involvement document to try to address those things from that standpoint. But it's awfully difficult to drag the public to the, unless they got an issue, as you're well aware. So we're doing everything we can, and we'll try to increase that effort in the future.
Commissioner Merritt.
Just to clarify, I assume the motion was option 1 and 2. Is that what you wanted, Harry?
Yes.
Okay, it was just said to move the item, and I want to make sure.
This is a roll call vote, so it also, we need to have that. So.
Thank you for that clarification, though. Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This was just a question that I had, and I wasn't necessarily going to ask it today, but jumping off of Commissioner Lindley's point, it's my understanding that our MPO is relatively different than others around the state because we do include so many different counties. A lot of them are one county, many municipalities, right? Anything in your work looking at MPOs like ours, is there something unique about the communication with the public when you have adjoining counties, or are you really seeing some of the same issues regardless of the structure of the MPO?
Okay. Sounds like a two-part question. The nature of or makeup of this particular CRTPA versus other ones that I've seen. You are a very large area geographically. There's clearly a larger regional vision that's taking place here. And that is a very commendable effort. That does obviously then provide you a number of challenges in reaching out. And it's going to make the efforts and work of the staff more difficult. I did notice, as following up on this, the capital C to the bike way, City to C, thank you. There's a couple of public hearings planned for that, specifically for this effort. That's the sort of thing that we want to see.
That's great.
So, that answered it?
It gets to it, yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'd like to ask that the staff takes Commissioner Lindley's question to the citizens committees and get some feedback from them, because they could probably give us some good comments on that. All right, we're going to have a roll call vote on this particular item. So, and as Commissioner Merritt said, this includes options 1 and 2. So please, let's proceed with that.
Commissioner Van Camp?
Aye.
Commissioner Barfield? Commissioner Madison? Commissioner Merritt? Commissioner Crowley? Commissioner Dozier?
Aye.
Commissioner Lindley? Commissioner Maddox? Commissioner Sauls?
Aye.
Commissioner Maddox?
Aye.
Commissioner Miller?
Aye.
Commissioner Ziffer? Thank you.
Moving on. We're now to Section 5, CRTPA discussion. I'm sure this will be interesting. Director?
Yes, each year we are required to elect a new chair and vice chair. So this year we're bringing that up again. It's been the sort of the protocol of the organization is the vice chair usually moves up to the chair.
I would, when you're ready for motion, nomination.
Commissioner Crowley has,
I nominate Wakulla Commissioner Merritt, Randy.
That's right.
Yes,
For
Chair,
second.
second.
moved by Commissioner Crowley, seconded by Commissioner Madison, on to move Commissioner Merritt up to the position of chair. Congratulations.
I'll be on time next meeting. I got up at the China buffet, sorry.
You didn't bring us any
He
food.
was thinking about us, so never say it again.
Well, let's just, since this motion includes just the chair position, let's go ahead and vote on that. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you very much. All right, vice chair.
Nominate Commissioner Dozier.
Commissioner Crowley nominates Commissioner Dozier, seconded by Commissioner Merritt. All in favor, I'm assuming Commissioner Dozier is willing to be the sub next year and ultimately sit here and run meetings. All in favor of Commissioner Dozier as vice chair for next year, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Good, nobody. Thank you. Congratulations to both of you. I will be delighted to turn over the gavel. All right.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller, for a great year.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
glad
we'll
you've
save-
enjoyed it.
We'll
I
say that
certainly-
more in the future, but, well, I know.
How many more meetings do I have to chair?
This is the last meeting.
Yeah,
but,
that's what I thought.
Your term in office doesn't end until December 31st.
Oh, that's wonderful, though. I'm glad to hear it.
Not half the chair.
All right, moving on. We're going to move on and have a discussion about the designation of the MPOAC representative and alternate. And currently, Commissioner Madison is the MPOAC representative, and Commissioner Dozier and Commissioner, I guess, Scott Maddox are the alternates. Nick? Oh, Commissioner Dozier and Commissioner Nick Maddox.
We look alike.
Yeah, I know. I confuse those two.
Both growing beards?
It's that name thing.
I started Friday.
So, open for discussion, and first of all, let's ask for speakers. Are there any speakers on this item? All right, thank you. All right, commissioners, do you have comments? No comments. The director and I had a conversation about whether or not this should be every year that we vote on this, because the person gets in the, and Commissioner Madison's been kind enough to continue to stick it out, but would it be easier for you all to have someone that's in there for a couple of 3 years, so there's consistency and the person gets comfortable with the job? I just thought I'd throw that out for discussion.
Madam Chair,
How long
I
a
move
term?
for 3-year terms.
commit, that makes sense, especially from you. All right, Commissioner Nick Maddox has moved that we make this a 3-year position, and Commissioner Madison has seconded that. So, any more discussion?
Just a quick
Commissioner Dozier.
quick comment. I truly appreciate Commissioner Madison's commitment to this, but it does seem like a really good learning opportunity. So with a long term, I think it's a great idea because there are ongoing issues, but it may be good for us to rotate through that so we all get an experience, any who want it, to learn more. In my conversations with the director, there's a lot of presentations that might just be good ongoing training for us. Just a thought, but I don't mind the 3-year term at all.
Want to designate the alternates at the same time?
Well, that's a question. Let me pick up on this first. Is there an option to make it a 3-year term and then that person leaves and we select somebody else at that point? Probably just to refresh the pool. Is that?
I suggest that we make it a 3-year term, and if that person leaves, then the alternate would serve out the remainder, or the first alternate would serve out the remainder of that 3-year term. And then we would actually nominate a new alternate,
Okay.
rather than voting on a new designee.
All right.
we must-
Is everybody
must
clear?
I'm not clear on
You
that
do
at all.
that?
Well, technically, if the designee cannot satisfy their obligation, the alternate takes care of the obligation.
Makes sense.
I'm sorry. Harry, I was
Dozier.
just wondering if we can do it without a vote. I think we need to advance someone by a vote, right?
No, I thought we were just voting on the terms. We're not voting on a person yet, are we?
I'm not sure I understood your comment.
The motion on the table is to make this the person in the position a 3-year term. That's all that's on the table at this point. And Commissioner Maddox, your change was, what was your recommended change?
No, there was no recommended changes, that we continue to go with the order that we've gone in the past, whereas if the designee cannot satisfy the obligation, one of the alternates would satisfy the obligation, and if the designee steps off completely, then we nominate and elect a new alternate, not a new designee. That's all I was saying. Because you had asked a question.
By definition, the alternate would step in.
Right.
Well,
that's all.
yes, I mean, it's because they would no longer be on the board if that was the case. I mean, that's if your term ends, then you're no longer on the board.
You lose the
I
election.
mean, if you're elected,
Yeah,
your
you're
elected
unelected.
position.
I know, but I'm just saying, isn't that what an alternate does by definition, is step in when the designee's gone?
What you're trying to do now is to fill a vacancy before it actually exists, and procedurally, what you should do is assume that the person is going to stay in the position for the entire term. So you have to actually vote on it when it actually occurs. So
All right.
even though it's a idealistic thing, I would recommend that you wait until the actual vacancy occurs.
All right, well, let's take a vote on the 3-year term, just to get that out of the way. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Now, the designees, the topic of the, we haven't selected a designee yet either, but do you want to continue this discussion and talk about, I guess it doesn't really matter. We don't need to talk about the designees in the context of the 3 years?
Did we designate Commissioner Madison as to continue in this role or not? I mean, the
Not
only thing
yet.
I,
Designate?
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Barrett and a second by Commissioner Crowley to ask Commissioner Madison to continue in her role for the next 3 years. She's accepted. So all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Thank you. All right, now we're down to the topic of designees or of alternates.
I move Commissioner Nick Maddox.
Second.
Commissioner Crowley has nominated Commissioner Nick Maddox with a second from Commissioner Madison for the alternative. So all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, thank you. I think we're finished with that topic.
Why were
Any
there
other
two
comments?
alternates?
Yeah, do we need 2 alternates?
I don't know, we never had that before. I don't, there
We've
was
always had
some,
2 alternates.
You always, you have it
We've always
now.
had 2 alternates.
We have
In case the
last
first
3
alternate dies.
oh, we have for the last 3 years?
Everybody might lose your election.
That's why we have two. We have to elect the.
So do you want to elect
have as
another
many alternates
alternate?
as you wish.
Madam Chair, I think in the 3 years Commissioner Maddox and myself have served alternates, we've never been needed, so probably one. Don't you think, Harry, will suffice?
We could certainly have a meeting and deal with it at that time, as our attorney has suggested we do. Right now, we are assuming, as our attorney has recommended, that the persons are going to stay in place, not lose election. They're going to be back in the job for the next 3 years, and if any calamity may befall one of them, then we will come back to this table and we'll discuss this again. All right, now, any other comment on that particular topic? Good, thank you. All right, we're moving on to number 5C, CRTPA Transportation Alternative Program Evaluation Criteria Approval. This is what we've all been waiting for. So I hope you all came to the table with ideas, because this is how we decide what sidewalks we're going to fund. Director, do you have any comment?
Greg Burke is here to report on the outcome of those alternatives.
Okay, very good. As a background, as some of you may recall, at your March 25th CRTPA board meeting, you all approved a timeline associated with the implementation of the CRTPA's TAP program, or Transportation Alternatives Program. What that program is actually a mirror of MAP 21, which was the federal transportation spending bill that created the Federal Transportation Alternatives Program. Essentially what that did was consolidate projects that used to be termed transportation enhancements, along with other projects such as recreational trails programs and safe routes to school, into this new program that's called Transportation Alternatives Program, or again, TAP. So in essence, these three projects or programs that used to be funded separately are now combined and all compete equally with other projects. Collectively, TA projects broadly are defined as community-based projects that expand travel choices and enhance the transportation experience. At the March approval of the timeline was actually the establishment of a CRTPA TA subcommittee. And what that subcommittee is comprised of 6 members, 3 from each of the CRTPA standing committees, the CAC and the CMAC. Their initial task was actually why we're here today, to develop evaluation criteria to ultimately rank those applications that this agency will be receiving in early next year. To that end, the subcommittee met 2 times in September and October. They examined the criteria that were used with our former Transportation Enhancements Program, as well as transportation alternatives criteria that were recently established by some other Florida MPOs, as well as some other MPO transportation agencies throughout our nation. Ultimately, they identified 10 evaluation criteria to be used, and specifically they ranked those in terms of the points they thought should be actually applied to those criteria. And this is what we ultimately got. This information is in your agenda item. I'm not going to go specifically over all of them, but some of the evaluation criteria were project constructability, safety for all users, mobility options for the transportation disadvantaged, the identification of the project within a plan of our region, and also community public support. With regards to the actual scoring of these individual criteria, the TA subcommittee recommended that there be a maximum of 90 points that any application could get, with the first 3 of those criteria receiving 15 points, and then the remaining ones receiving 5. We moved forward to our November 5th CRTPA, CAC, and CMAC meeting for their input and their approval of what was developed by the subcommittee. Ultimately, they supported the 10 criteria that the subcommittee developed. However, they thought that the maximum points that an application should receive should be 100, and specifically 2 of those criteria should be bumped from 5 points to 10 points, that being improving multimodal transportation linkages and identification in a regional plan. In terms of the next steps associated with the establishment of the CRTPA TAP, we will be conducting on December 12th a regional coordination meeting with our transportation partners that will include the local governments to talk about our upcoming establishment of the program, the submittal of the projects that we're looking to receive for the applications in February. And then the TA subcommittee will regroup in the spring to actually apply those evaluation criteria that you all approved today with your input to finally make a recommendation to rank those projects in September of next year as you receive the project priority project lists, the PPLs, that you adopt to provide guidance to the Florida DOT as they move forward with the development of the state work program. Specifically for here, that would obviously be the Transportation Alternatives PPL, or project priority list. In terms of today, what we are seeking from you for the recommended action is actually to adopt the evaluation criteria that were developed by the TA subcommittee and further refined on November 5th by the two committees of the CRTPA board. With that said, I'm available to answer any questions you all may have.
I'll make that motion, but I want to.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Merritt, but can you hold that motion just a little bit? I wanted to ask you to clarify something. You said that you started out by saying this program combined other programs.
Correct.
One of those is Safe Routes to School, and the other one is enhancement grants. And I don't see any evidence of Safe Routes to Schools in any of this criteria, first of all. Secondarily, the enhancement grants are generally a more localized effort, and that would come into conflict with some of these criteria from my perspective. And in a sense, anything that is meeting, as far as the qualifying activities, for example, it has to meet 9 of, how many of these 9 does it meet? Well, something that if this doesn't get us to a blessed sidewalk on Magnolia, then I'm not going to approve these things. And so that's basically the bottom line. So if you can tell me how sidewalks like that would rank.
Okay, certainly.
And in some cases, the effort that the whole neighborhood, Indian Head neighborhood, put to get the sidewalks on Lafayette Street and moved forward the way they have, how that would rank, and why that isn't in conflict with the qualifying activities requirement, which is ranked very highly. So.
Yeah, and a couple answers to that. First off, with regards to the qualified activities for those projects that are eligible, sidewalk projects are in there, and I can further down there, I have some slides for what specific activities are eligible. With regards to sidewalk projects themselves, in terms of the recommended criteria, what we have in there is project improve safety for all users. A sidewalk could be a situation like that. Contributes to multimodal mobility options for the transportation disadvantage, which obviously a sidewalk could meet that as well. Another angle for that would be project identified in a plan of a region. With regards to Magnolia Drive, as you know, Magnolia Drive is identified in the CRTPA's long-range transportation plan, the RMP, so that would meet that one as well. And there's some other ones in there. What we have there, the second to last criterion is the project has community or public support. How we would actually operationalize that would be, we would be looking at support from neighborhood associations. We would be looking at support from nonprofits. We would be looking at all sorts of support. So there's different ways that formerly projects that were qualified as enhancements will actually meet this new criteria for the broadly Transportation Alternatives Program.
Well, I do want to say I was very glad to see that acquisition of right-of-way was at the top of the list. So if someone comes forward and all of their right-of-way bought, that should help them, right?
Correct.
Or donated. All right, with that, we'll start down the list. Commissioner Proctor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, thank you very much for sharing this information. I believe that the public benefit versus the project cost at the bottom is most important. And I would think that we would put a value of 25 points there and not 5 points. From my way of understanding this, a project like Magnolia Drive would never, ever, it would do well for public benefit, but it ain't going to get the 5 points out of that category. I would make the recommendation to our board that we would make that 25 points, that we would, in terms of the project has community support or public support, bump that to 15 points. I would suggest for the disadvantage matter, that would be a 10-pointer. And facilitating multimodal linkages should be a 15-pointer. And I don't know what lap certification is, but I don't know its relevance. And the project constructability should be 5 points, but we can reduce points. But the key thing here is that the public benefit for a sidewalk ought to be what you're looking at first. And all this other stuff is come down, you count down 3 places to figure what's second, third, and fifth. But this right here is should be reversed. Put the top to the bottom and the bottom to the top is what I would view as the approach that we ought to be looking at this. I would love also, like you, Madam Chair, to understand how something like Magnolia Drive would even qualify for this kind of ranking. I don't see it coming out of live. I'd like to know how North Ridge Road could come out of live on something like this, even Orange Avenue. I don't see it. There's a criteria as well. You can look at foot traffic, people, where they walk, how a road gives you a sense. And I don't know what you call that, common pathways. No grass will grow by a street. They walk in there. They beat a walking path into the ground. That should be looked at as well. People are already walking this way. So I would offer that to suggest, and listen to other commissioners, that we definitely would pull out the bottom of the well, the public benefit. The public benefit is why we want to do this. Thank you.
Commissioner Merritt.
I'm going to address the lap certification process. I'm just, for us smaller counties, we're actually seriously considering letting our lap certification drop our laps and let DOT handle our projects that involve federal funding, just because of the reporting requirements that have become quite large. So I would suggest lap certification, is the applicant sponsor lap certified, and then insert or capable, because we're certainly capable of being lap certified. And I know the intent was to keep this focused on local governments and not just any homeowners group to come in and want to get money for sidewalks. So I'd really like to see us do that. Whatever the wording is, Harry, you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
If Wakulla County becomes not lap certified, that we're still not excluded to get that 15 points. I don't know if you could say that if it's a local government, or there's another way to word it to accomplish what he's trying to do, but not punish us.
And what we do have, Commissioner, as you can see to the right of lap certification, is the application sponsor lap certified or capable of being lap certified.
There's not the word "or" in there. I understand there's a semicolon, but, and I just wanted to be sure.
Okay.
If we let our lap certification lapse, that we're not going to be excluded from this 15 points. Again, because the intent was to be more favorable to governments versus community organizations.
No, I think that the identification of somebody that's going to be able to sponsor it, because that's one of the things that's a change in the program, is that it has to be a government entity or somebody that's eligible or capable of being lap certified before DOT will consider it. And that's part of the legislation, is the way it is. It has to come from a public entity. And so, our recommendation is they go through either the county or the city, and they determine which projects they want to move forward. But the lap certification, for Commissioner Proctor's understanding is that that's the way we get the money. If you're not able to be certified or capable of being certified, then you can't. The money won't come. And that's to build the project.
Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner Merritt?
Are you, because it does? Okay, because I still have a question.
As long as it's worded, I don't want to come back, a year from now and see our projects evaluated. Oh, Wakulla, you didn't get any because you're not lap certified. We just don't want that to happen.
Okay.
Or any other small county that may
agree.
decide
Yeah.
they don't want to stay lap certified.
Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you. Actually, my question was going to the project constructability. Jumping off of your point, Madam Chair, is right-of-way required, things of that nature? I mean, some projects that come up, we do need to acquire right-of-way and things like that. So is this intended to mean that everything's free and clear, all the right-of-way is already purchased or acquired, as Commissioner Miller said? Or is it, I mean, projects can get on this list as well if there's still a little bit more work to do. Again, going to the Magnolia example, we know that city and county need to think about the stormwater issues, but it can still stay in the list. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a good question. As you know, these criteria came from the subcommittee. The conversation with regards to project constructability was the overwhelming consensus of those 6 members on the subcommittee. They thought that due to the limited funding that's available for transportation alternatives projects, and annually this agency will get about $316,000, which really is not a lot, as you know. We're also eligible for other TA funding within the district that we would compete with other counties or MPOs within the district. But money specifically that is coming to the CRTPA earmarked is about $316,000 a year. And again, in light of that, they thought that those projects that would require right-of-way would be so much more expensive given limited resources that they thought that with regards to evaluating those projects, ones that did not require right-of-way should perhaps receive higher points. That was the mindset for that.
Okay, so that brings up another question. If a project was more challenging or more costly, I mean, certainly there's a lot of projects that are above $300,000 themselves.
Correct.
Individually. That wouldn't preclude us from putting them on the list and funding them through other sources, or, you know, it's this particular, am I understanding that correctly?
Well, in the sense that I said $316,000 a year, projects that cost more certainly can go on that list. They would just be funded perhaps over a number of years with regards to that. Another way to possibly get at this, as you mentioned, was projects having their, is it leveraged by other use of funding? So if a local government wants to add some funds to it, perhaps their bike ped portion that they get every year from this agency, then that project would be ranked higher.
Would it be useful at all to articulate that a little bit more and say right-of-way acquired? I mean, you've got et cetera in there. I just don't know what et cetera includes.
Yeah.
So et cetera would include contribution from from the local government or other entities or something of that nature?
Permitting, maybe?
Well, hopefully we can get through permitting.
No, Leon County.
Hey, now.
Certainly, and what you're really getting to is how we operationalize these criteria, and I think that's a great suggestion, and certainly something we can add.
I meant DEP permitting.
Sure. Well, Madam Chair, I mean, I would like for that one to take into account the partnerships we have and other funding sources. Just, I mean, again, going to our favorite example, it's going to require other efforts to be made outside of this committee if we're going to get something like that done, but I wouldn't want us to limit ourselves to only those projects where right-of-way has already been donated or purchased or acquired in some other fashion. Because, I mean, to Commissioner Proctor's point, I'm not sure I necessarily agree with the suggestion on the point breakdown, but, you know, public good is part of this.
And this is just 15 points, so keep that in mind. Commissioner Crowley.
Yes, I have some observations and maybe some questions to go along. First, as far as this LAP certification is concerned, I believe Gadsden County is LAP certified, and I do not understand why any county would not wish to comply with that program. There may be added cost, added reporting, but to me, that's lowering the standard rather than holding the standard, raising the bar for every interest here. And I think that as a region, it is in everyone's best interest that we all toe the same line as where it's possible. The other thing that bothers me, and I must be very candid with everyone here, I brought this up before. I go all over these counties, all over the city, all over our adjoining counties and neighboring, and it's not uncommon when you speak about sidewalks, to see local governments waiving the sidewalk requirement. And don't tell me that this hasn't happened here, because I was just in the neighborhood yesterday evening and over on the northeast side of town, and the people there don't have sidewalks. And I'm wondering, now, why in the world weren't sidewalks required in here? Now, and that was a county initiative. This comes back that you keep asking for us to take public funds to put back in sidewalks where elected officials took them out. I need not go anywhere but to my friend down here in Wakulla County. Yeah, and that's all I'm saying to you. I see that down there. And we see that problem.
Leon County,
We see that all over. And so what I'm trying to say is, shouldn't there be a requirement in here that sidewalks aren't being waived if you're being asked that a county get additional money for alternative transportation if they're not requiring it, if they're waiving their sidewalk requirements? I don't follow that. That shouldn't be something to be considered. Another thing, this technical committee, who represented Gadsden County on that? Because I don't know.
Like I said, it was comprised of 3 members from each of the 2 committees for the CRTPA Technical Advisory Committee, as well as the CMAC Citizens Multimodal Advisory Committee. The members on the TAC that requested that they actually volunteer to be on this subcommittee included a member from the City of Tallahassee's Public Works Department. And, you know, I'm drawing a blank right now as to who the members from the TAC.
No offense, I take it you don't know either. Anyway, I think having criteria is a good idea. And Commissioner Proctor, I agree with some of your concerns about where it's obviously the public are using these goat paths, as some people refer to them. That speaks volumes about the need, and I think those things should be taken into consideration. But on the other hand, I'm not real sure that this is a perfect model right now. And whenever you come back in here and you don't require lap certification, I don't understand that just to end. So I don't know whether what I'm seeing makes a great deal of sense to all of you, but certainly raises a lot of questions in my mind as to how effective this will ultimately be, and particularly as it affects the rural counties as well. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I believe the lap certification is still in there. That's where I feel we left that. Commissioner Dozier, Commissioner Lindley, and Commissioner Proctor.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I just didn't.
She forgot to flip her card.
Lindley, Commissioner Lindley.
Well, I just wanted to mention that I think when counties don't build sidewalks, Leon County alone had requests for $50 million worth of sidewalks. What is that, about 25% of our budget? So I think they're not getting built everywhere for a good reason. There's not enough money. So just, it's not, for any other reason than that as a rule.
Yeah, but I'm talking about in established subdivisions that were waived and not required.
All right, Commissioners, between Commissioner Deloge and Commissioner Crowley, I think they'll settle the issue of waiving. Thank you very much. And thank you for your clarification, Commissioner Lindley. Commissioner Proctor?
Does the word public benefit actually include the thought of improving public safety, such as allowing people to come out of the street from walking onto a side area? Is that what that word means?
Certainly, yeah.
Okay. I think that, again, that any alternative that allows and gets human beings out of our streets and out of the way of auto traffic is a help, and that it's merely 5 points in the evaluation process. I'm staggering to understand such low. Could you help us to understand why this committee could only arrive at getting human beings out the street in the way of cars? Why is that so low at 5 points?
There's some other criterion on there that address that issue as well. I mean, there's facilitating multimodal linkages, project identified in a plan, a sidewalk project that's identified in a plan of the region. Certainly one of the reasons that a sidewalk would be constructed would be for safety issues. So some of the criteria themselves, cross-pollinate to an extent. Ultimately, how we got those points, though, with regards to the TA subcommittee, they went through and all the members ranked them and which ones they thought were most important for receiving on there, and that's...
Are those members strictly from other areas and not the south side?
They were from all over, and I had a little bit of clarity with regards to the members on the TAC. Like I said earlier, we had a member from the City Public Works Department. We also had, on our TAC, we have a consultant who does projects throughout the region who's on the TAC. We also had a staff member from Star Metro who was representing the TAC on that. So we had kind of a broad cross-selection. The citizens on that committee, we had J.R. Harding, who is a big advocate for disability issues and concerns within the region, obviously. We had a citizen, Leon County citizen, that was also representing the CMAC. And I think we had pretty much a broad, like I said, a broad cross-section, but those were the 6 people that actually were interested in serving on this committee, because everyone was not interested in serving on a subcommittee. So
Right.
you kind of get the people that want to be on it.
Okay. Well, that the public benefit means taking people who are already currently walking in the street and creating hazard, such as Magnolia Drive does every day and night. I believe it deserves more than 5. I'm not supporting the request that we adopt this. I'm dissatisfied totally with such a low reality, and I think it's the primary thing. I'm certain that each of you will vote your conscience. The other question that Commissioner Crowley is raising is the issue of whether or not there's an equitable, that this evaluation criteria is equitable in its application to the smaller counties. And to the extent that, a LAP or some counties don't have that, whether or not either you exempt them from that and therefore their point total will be 85, but I think it's very important that you've exhausted the equitableness of criteria which each of the counties sort of in an even Steven sort of way can qualify for the opportunity for in their evaluation. And is that true? And I just need to know if you say yes or no. It don't have to be a long drawn out. But are each of these, our sister counties, having a fair shake in these rankings?
I certainly believe so. And with regards to the lab certification, as we said, what we have on there is, and it's been clarified, are they certified or capable of being certified? So that's the issue on there. And one thing, if I can go back to your concern about safety with regards to sidewalk projects, I neglected to point you to actually the fourth one down there from the top, which says project improves safety for users. Example, reduces hazards for pedestrians, cyclists, and motorists. And those points are 15 for projects that. So like I said, some of these criteria kind of overlap and cross-pollinate, but ultimately that's kind of the nature of evaluating projects. And when we've looked at how other agencies have done this, those are criteria that have been used by other agencies, and again, incorporate criteria that we used in the past with regards to the CRTPA's former program, which was transportation enhancements. So,
also, this item says public benefit versus public project cost. If the Magnolia project got dinged, and basically this is an item that would ding a project. And so it's dinging at only 5 points as versus 15 or 25 points. Does that make sense? Because it's a ratio. That particular item is the ratio. The real public benefit, it seems to me, and Greg, you can correct me if I'm misinterpreting this, is that some of these others above here that are a little more points would really address your concern.
Well, Madam Chair, however, it says public benefit versus project cost. But there is no ratio about cost to benefit. There's nothing like that, a total subjective. And what the explanation goes to is the extent of the project benefit to the community or region. There's no calibration on that at all. It's totally ethereal, abstract. I don't know what it means.
And if I could just add briefly to that, attachment 1 of the agenda item, obviously those are the recommended evaluation criteria, but attachment 1, as I said earlier, has a little bit more detail on how they're actually going to be operationalized with regards to public benefit versus project cost. One of the things with regards to providing points is to what extent will the project benefit the community or the region. Examples include will the project facilitate economic development, likelihood of pedestrian usage, given the surrounding land uses. So if we take Magnolia Drive, Magnolia Drive is in, for this region, a dense area. Obviously, there's a lot of neighborhoods around there. So versus putting a sidewalk maybe somewhere in a very, out somewhere where there's not much land use that would support its usage as much, then Magnolia Drive would obviously receive more points.
Thank you. Commissioner Merritt?
If you get a sidewalk in Magnolia, can we just have the rest of the money? It seems
There
Anyway,
won't be any money left.
I am going to vote for this item, but Commissioner Proctor's thing about criteria number 10 does get traction with me, because if you can spend a little bit of money and get a lot of benefit, it seems like that would rank higher. And I don't go behind committees and change what they suggested, but I do agree with that part. But I am going to vote for it, and I'll make the motion on it if I'd made it before.
Motion to adopt option 1 on this item, the recommended TA evaluation criteria, which is the criteria that you find on page 3, correct?
Correct.
All right.
On page 4.
Well, that's why, page 4? Okay, the criteria on page 4. All right, the motion by Commissioner Merritt and seconded by Commissioner Lindley. Any other further conversation? Commissioner Ziffer?
No, if we're going to, I'll call the question.
That's what I thought you were going to do. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, wait, public comment. There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Dissension from Commissioner Crowley and Commissioner Proctor.
That's the first time you ever voted against it.
All right, we're moving, and we will all be anxiously anticipating the ranking when you finally come out with it to see if our favorite projects are on there.
Always be sure you're right, and then go ahead.
Item 5D, Capital City to the Sea Trails. Director?
Yes, ma'am. This is a report from the consultants regarding the results of the public workshops. The second one, the identification of corridors and the assessment of the corridors based on the evaluation criteria that the board adopted in September meeting. And John,
Move option 1.
so
Moved by Commissioner Ziffer. Second? Second by Commissioner Deloge. Comments? Are there any public comments on this item? All right, thank you. Gone.
you need to vote.
I know. I'm asking if anybody has any last-minute thought. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. Thank you very much.
What was that you just slipped in there, Madam Chairman?
Pay raises for everybody that was voting.
Yeah, really. Put that in there. All right. We're on 5E. 5E,
5E
I believe so.
is the Lake Ella median project. As you recall, the alternative we selected and sent to the DOT was had to do with a stoplight at North Lake Ella Drive. DOT has come back and looked at this and said there's some concerns regarding the stoplight, and they're here to provide a recommendation that we look at the, probably was our original.
That's the one in front of the Publix?
Yes. So they're looking at a mid-block crossing. The results of the advisory committees is that this was that they liked the option, but they also wanted the DOT to go back and study the inclusion of a light as well. So we have Jared Perdue here with DOT. Good presentation.
Madam Chair, members of the board, my name is Jared Perdue. I'm the District Traffic Operations Engineer for the Florida Department of Transportation. I'm not consultant staff as indicated on the agenda. And I am here to discuss the Lake Ella Pedestrian Improvement Project, which we are very anxiously interested in moving forward with, because we all know it's a much-needed project. And basically, I'm here to present to you the concept that we're moving forward with in the design phase, which is basically going, as you can see with the handout and this projected image, is going to implement the raised median improvements and maintain all of the access that was adopted as part of the implementation plan study that was done. And in addition to that, we will be constructing a mid-block crossing in a central location where the majority of the pedestrians are currently crossing Monroe Street, and also it will give them the greatest opportunity to cross, the shortest distance to walk, because there is a, what I would consider a plethora of pedestrian activity in this corridor, and we're trying to bring them to a location that is safe. So I will entertain any questions that you have at this time.
I move the item.
Which one do y'all want?
Which,
I think it's this one.
by direction?
Are these the same as what's in the book?
I think so.
Yeah, but I don't want to give up on
Yeah.
the line.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
could I
that's the
ask a
same.
Wait,
question
stop,
before we-
everyone stop. Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you. I need to ask a question before we move on, because I was rather confused by this item, I have to say, and I look back at I think it was our March meeting when we approved Alternative C. If you all remember, in the spring, we had one meeting where Commissioner Daley suggested that we dial back all medians, and in the next meeting, we came back and we actually adopted option C, which has a number of meetings. It had the traffic light, it had the two-way turn out of Legion, all those types of things. When I look at that map, which I do have pulled up right now, versus this one, from my eyes, they look very, very different. There's far smaller medians. Now, our director, Reed, said that perhaps I'm just looking at you only have highlighted the landscaping portions, and there might be concrete medians, but I cannot support this item at this point, given that we'd already taken a vote on this other Alternative C, there was public comment, until I get more understanding of why it looks so different. Now, I will say, I do like the crosswalk there in between South Lake Ella and Legion. I think that's a great idea. And I do support adding back in the light at Lake Ella Drive. But can you talk us through a little bit why the medians look so different?
Well, basically, as you're aware, the concept that was adopted was a concept. It was just that. And still, the engineering has to go into the implementation of this project. And so, we looked at the aspects of all the vehicular movements that are taking place and the pedestrian movements, where they're located, how they're happening, where the crashes are, and basically, what you see here is the raised medians that are proposed, and it does look a little bit different, but it's still maintaining the access that was agreed upon in the original concept, but it's also providing what we consider the safest avenue for vehicular movements to access Monroe Street, because with the previous concept there were some issues with median widths and vehicles, if they're making a left turn out and storing in the median and not having enough width there to have refuge from the through traffic. And so we looked at it comprehensively, and really the biggest intent of this project is to improve pedestrian safety, and I think that's what we're accomplishing here.
Well, Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I appreciate your comments on this. And obviously, I suppose, you're talking about when you're turning out of Legion, you need enough room to get in that center lane if you have to merge into
Yes.
traffic going southbound or something of that nature. But that, to me, that still doesn't explain, for example, why there is no median indicated between Legion and Lake Ella at all. And this, again, is a substantial shift from what was, and I understand also that you all are taking this on now, at least I believe that's correct, from our consultant who did the conceptual plan, but I think they're pretty good at their jobs too. So I'm just, this is a pretty big discrepancy between, or not, maybe not discrepancy is the right word, a pretty big shift from what we saw before.
They are, and I can help address some of your specific questions, like between Legion and North Lake Ella Drive. The reason that there's not a raised median in there is because it won't fit. You have to have a dedicated exclusive north and southbound left turn lane for both of the access points on Monroe Street. If you put a raised median in there, then you take away the ability to store vehicles there, which causes many safety concerns with the through movements and allowing a space for turning vehicles to get out of the through movement. And if we were to build a raised median there and store pedestrians there, but there were no refuge for left turning vehicles, we've got the potential for really severe rear end collisions with pedestrians in a raised median. So, that's the kind of things we considered.
I appreciate that this is your job and this is what you do, and your comments on this, but I still have a tremendous number of questions on this, and I don't know if there's an option to table this to dig in even deeper, but I got a lot of concerns.
I think part of the confusion is those tails that you see on the medians there are really concrete separators. And that I think he needs to address from the standpoint, is it wide enough to put in there? But for the most part, with the exception of what you just pointed out, between Legions and Lake Ella, all of the medians have been put in. And so if the issue is the concrete separators, and I think you need to address that from that standpoint.
I think the two biggest changes are actually this concept does not include the traffic signal at North Lake Ella Drive, and it does not include the raised median between Legion Street and North Lake Ella Drive.
You're right. Those are the two biggest changes, and I'm hearing that we can put back in the traffic light. Is that correct?
That's a recommendation.
Recommendation to put that back in.
I guess in exchange for the medians, you get a southbound left turn lane onto Legion and a northbound left turn lane into the parking lot of the store, right?
That's correct.
I'll be sure I understood.
And at this time, the plan is not, the department's plan is to not move forward with the installation of a traffic signal for many reasons. Number one, it's way too close to Tharp Street. It doesn't meet our spacing criteria, which is 1,320 feet. It's only about 500 feet. And from a safety and efficiency standpoint, it is just not good practice to do that. Most of the pedestrians are not crossing at North Lake Ella Drive, and it creates significant congestion issues in a coordinated system, which is what Monroe Street is. So,
Well, Madam Chair, I'm sorry. One last comment, and I'll give it up. That amazes me. Every time I am at that intersection, I see near misses. So it's near misses with vehicles and pedestrians. And I can think of many, many places, I'm not a traffic engineer, where lights are fairly close together. So if we move forward with a recommendation for a traffic light, does that put us in conflict with DOT? And I'll be done. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You can move forward with the recommendation as you choose. My only position is that you consider doing this and then come back and look at the traffic light at a later time, from the standpoint that I think you're right. And what you're saying is it'll be demonstrated. We do have instances around the city where lights are a lot closer. As a matter of fact, we even have one in this corridor. But just to address the thing, maybe Jared could address this from the standpoint is there, what is shown in the recommendation that was sent to you all is apparently we have the dividers. And is there enough room to put the concrete? You've got one all the way up at Tharp, where it goes from the median and then goes all the way up to Tharp, a little purple area that you see. Was there a reason that they were taken out? Or can they be put back in, or what it is? Because that's what she's referring to in this thing from the recommendation.
Okay, I think that I understand your question with regards to Tharp Street. At that signal, there is an exclusive northbound left turn lane on Monroe Street. And, the safety concern there where you experience crashes is people making the ability to make a left out or left in at that driveway connection within the operational vicinity of the signalized intersection. And that causes major concerns. It causes major crash concerns. So that raised concrete separator is still going in. Now, if you go down to between Legion and North Lake Ella, What you see there on the concept that we've proposed is the raised median. And there's not a concrete separator extending along the length of the left turn lane. And the reason for that is because vehicles turning left out of Legion Street to go south on Monroe would not have room, they would not have width in the median to store and have refuge from through traffic. And so we don't want to create a situation where they do not have the ability to make a left out without potentially getting in a severe crash.
Commissioner Deloge.
So I think if you think back to the very beginning when we first started having this conversation a couple years ago, the crosswalk idea was our original idea, which was how do we get pedestrians from one side to the other? You got people trying to get to Publix, you got the senior center, and only later after we kind of had a lot of input and a lot of other people jumped in, we said, well, let's do the light and a crosswalk a little further down, and there were a lot of people on both sides of the argument. Clearly, we can't just force you, we're going to change the rules kind of thing. It sounds like, I'd make a motion that we accept this moving forward with a crosswalk, with the idea being, I don't think the light is an absolute never to be done. I'd like to continue to pursue that and see how can we get to that point. I think the ultimate for me would be have the crosswalk and within the realms of DOT's guidelines, be able to put that light in there as well. So I'd make a motion that we accept this.
We have a motion on the table already.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Why don't you just second?
We have a motion and a second on the table.
And then mine's a third, just so I'm going on the record.
And a fourth, by the way.
You missed it. Would you like to be another alternate for?
The question that I have is this. It is now that you've decided to take this light out, and that concerns us because on the city side, I know our public works director feels that's workable, and I know that down Monroe Street toward town, the lights are closer together than that. So this is a pedestrian area, that's a pedestrian area down there, and as I believe Commissioner Deloge said, we started out wanting a crosswalk at Lake Ella Drive and a light also, and then now we're all under the concept that we were going to have a light that people could cross at and also traffic could cross there. And so now all we're left with is this one crosswalk that's really way down the road, not even addressing the people that are trying to get over to Publix. So we are certainly going to be doing to ask you to consider putting in that light. And with that, I guess we're back to Commissioner Ms. Dozier, and then we're going to move to Mr. Merritt.
Mine's going to be very quick.
I'll make this quick. I may fail, but I would like to offer a substitute motion to approve this with the inclusion of the light at South Lake Ella Drive.
And then
And it fails for lack.
now that's a substitute motion that Commissioner Ziffer is going to ponder. And I'm going to ask you this, while he thinks it is food for his thought, I'd like to know if that will hold up this installation of these medians in any way.
That's what I want to know.
I knew that.
What's the question?
I would say that whatever the board recommends today, the department will definitely take that into consideration.
So yes.
All right, thank you. Does that mean a hold up or not?
I really can't speak to that. I can just tell you that whatever the board recommends and adopts today, that the department will take that into consideration.
I'm not going to accept the alternate motion. I'd like to go ahead and move forward and work towards that traffic light in the future.
All right, Commissioner Merritt.
Quick engineering question. Your 1,320-foot spacing criteria, is that based on a speed limit that's posted out there? Because like Nancy said, downtown, of course, they're much closer than that. I assume it's speed limit based.
Speed limit is one of the many factors that goes into it. So 45, speed limit 45 and under, it would be 1320 for this classification of roadway. But that's just one of the many factors considered.
But the speed limit here is 35, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, with that, I'm sure that Commissioner Ziffer is ready to call the question.
I am.
We have a motion to accept option 1 from Commissioner Ziffer, and it's seconded by Commissioner Madison, and this is going to include with further work down the road to get a light, because we all want a light. So, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Dissension from Commissioner Proctor and Commissioner...
You voted first vote against something?
Well, if that, we can move on to the next item.
Madam Chair, the next item is a report from the city regarding their study on the Willani Boulevard interchange. the city commission requested that they provide this information to you. It has an impact on what DOT is doing in their assessment of Thomasville Road and US 90 at Mahan.
This is for information only, correct?
Yes, yes.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members. My name is Richard Barr with Kimley Horn and Associates, representing the city on this, the traffic work we've been doing, looking at Walani Boulevard and I-10 interchange over the last several months. We have a very short presentation. We gave a similar presentation to the City Commission 2 or 3 months ago. Show a little bit of how we got here, what's been going on in our study, some results, and talk a little bit about the agency feedback that we've been getting from this study and the results, and then talk about a little bit about the next steps moving forward. Why we're here. Again, City Commission asked us to give a presentation to this body. We're really talking about not just the Walani Boulevard I-10 interchange. It's really about a transportation system expansion that helps relieve Thomasville Road, helps relieve Mahan and those interchanges with I-10. It's also what we've, and being from Tallahassee in this area, we know that the growth projected growth is going to be in the east-northeast part of the city and the county. So this expansion of the system, transportation system, helps support that growth and economic development opportunities in northeast part of the city and county. But also what we've seen is the system is helping to relieve our canopy roads in the future. We know we have policy that Miccosukee and Centerville cannot be improved, so what we're seeing is some improvement to relieve those facilities. Just to give you a little context, Walani Boulevard between the Thomasville Road interchange and Mahan, between Miccosukee and Centerville roads. A little bit of background of things that have happened, have occurred over time. This interchange has been talked about for a long, long time. There's been a critical area plan that's been done by the plan department and the major landowner in the area back in early 2000s. There's been 2 plan unit developments, CNL and City of Tallahassee. Planning has occurred in this area. And then more recently, the Florida Department of Transportation undertook or updated the I-10 Interstate Master Plan. That study was completed at the end of last year, and this interchange was identified as a possible need in the future. It was a 20-year plan, so that was identified and studied at that time as well. Upcoming, getting underway right now, the DOT is reevaluating Interstate 10, the main line from the 4-lane section east of Thomasville Road. Also, as part of this study that DOT is doing, they're re-looking at the Thomasville Road Capitol Circle I-10 interchange. What was seen in the I-10 master plan, that we have issues with that interchange today. It's only going to get worse, much worse in the future. So something needs to occur related to that situation. Following the DOT advice from that master plan, we're building upon the planning efforts that have been done, that have occurred over the last several years. Including not just the interchange, but the supporting infrastructure for the interchange, the regional roads that would support that interchange. And I'll get to that in just a minute. As part of our study, there was a technical team formed from the city staff, county staff, CRTPA staff. We also gave regular reports and met with the major landowner to the north of this possible interchange. Also coordinated very closely with FDOT and had a meeting with Federal Highway Administration too, related to this, this study and the results. Our study was looking at a year 2035, and it definitely showed a benefit of the interchange and the regional road system connecting the interchange. Our analysis, which included detailed modeling, showed a significant reduction in traffic on Thomasville Road, Mahan Drive, and those interchanges. It certainly helped relieve a lot of those issues that we were seeing at for those interchanges. But also showed, as I mentioned previously, a relief to the Canopy roads, specifically Centerville and Miccosukee. Also related to our study, we can see this can be phased over time with the Welaunee interchange and the supporting infrastructure. Let me just go to a quick map. The purple dotted area, Welaunee Boulevard, from where it exists today at Fleischman, extended to the interchange, and then extending to the north of the interchange to a a Shamrock extension from Centerville Road. So that's part of the infrastructure that's related to support the interchange. There's also a Thornton Road connection from the Welaunee, south of the interstate, from Welaunee to Miccosukee. And then,
My question was, what are all the foot analogies for? I don't know if it's you or the city, but heel, arch, and toe.
I'm sorry, that came out of the critical area. That's a good question. That came out of the critical area plan. The arch, or the toe and the toe and the heel were the main study of the critical area plan. That those terms came out of that study.
Richard, would you go back and show everyone, because half the people at the table aren't familiar with that terminology probably, because it's a very local, it's like a nickname, basically.
Well, you can see that it's like a boot, that study area.
The whole thing looks sort of like
Italy
a boot.
looks like a boot. That doesn't look like a boot, but anyway.
The gray is the arch. The green down at the bottom with the purple line through it is a toe. The square-looking thing that sticks down further up is the heel. Does that help?
No.
See that?
I got the
You
way it's
envision
labeled.
it,
I'm just wondering who come up
It
with
is a horrible metaphor.
Yeah, that's kind of been in the lexicon since it started, but you would have no reason to know that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
All right, and in our capital area plan, in our comp plan, we've got development plans for that are approved and in the comp plan on the toe and the heel. But the arch wasn't included in that planning process, and this road is going into quote, the arch, which is that gray area that you see on the map.
Kind of like a child's nursery rhyme then. Heel,
Well, it's easy to understand four-letter terminology. All right, Richard, go ahead.
Okay, almost done. We did get some good feedback from FDOT. They did once we showed them results and the benefits. They did show support of the project. They are going to include that or consider the interchange as part of this upcoming PD&E work that they are undertaking. But one thing they did say, they need to have continued local commitment and support for these projects before they will consider the interchange. DOT also helped coordinate a meeting with Federal Highway, and they did also showed some support. And there's an access request process that they needs to go through from a federal process. Again, they are saying that there needs to be that commitment before their process can be approved. The next steps, I mentioned the local support for the overall transportation system. The regional mobility plan update is getting ready to get underway, and it certainly needs to be identified in the long-range transportation plan. Again, the access request, next steps, there's a methodology letter of understanding that can be undertaken right away and actually some things are actually going towards that now. And then related to that is the IJR, interchange justification report, and then a PD&E also has to be done for the interchange. And then obviously there needs to be continued coordination with DOT and Federal Highway. And with that, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
First of all, I'd like to ask if we have any public, I guess this is information only, we don't need public comment. All right, Commissioner Dozier. Okay, then Commissioner Maddox.
Quick question. Thank you for the presentation. I'm just curious because I think part of that public commitment is funding commitment. So we know that there is a proposal before the Sales Tax Extension Committee for Weelaunee. And I'm just wondering if there has been any coordination or if you have any comment about the specific proposal that's been made, because my understanding is much of that's coming from the development community versus what you all have been working on with DOT. Do you have any comments about those two plans?
Yeah, we were asked to, by the city to give a presentation to the Sales Tax Committee. They listened, they asked questions. I'm assuming they are considering the results that we have provided as a benefit, a regional benefit. One thing we're seeing, and what we identified as a real benefit of this, we've got the I-10 Thomasville Road interchange as a big issue, big congestion problem. With this interchange, this could help relieve some of that, could help the cost of building big infrastructure, significant infrastructure for that interchange. Not that it will relieve it completely, but it would help. So they're certainly getting some attention from that group and others.
Okay. Commissioner Scott Maddox.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to reiterate what I said at the City Commission when we got this briefing. I understand we're moving forward for possible funding of sales tax and, of course, to work with DOT and United States Department of Transportation for an interchange. I, however, will not support the funding of an interchange and with any of my votes until we get a 163 agreement with the landowners, the three landowners in question, to pay for Weelaunee Boulevard, both for the right-of-way and for the construction of the road, because I think that is critical to serving that area, and it needs a public-private partnership.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Crowley?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And I applaud just what Commissioner Maddox said, because I, in addition to having the interest for Gadsden County, I also have a business interest in the Thomasville Road, Capitol Circle Northeast area, and represent a office park there that has quite a few employees in it that work there, and the congestion around the Thomasville I-10 area, the flyover is heavily congested, and that needs to be addressed, and I'm not real sure that this interchange idea here would do much to alleviate that situation. Furthermore, there's another thing about it. When we have met with the DOT secretary and DOT staff and had the workshops on the interchanges, it's come up repeatedly that the purpose of the interstate is to move traffic interstate-wise and to help us with our economic opportunities as they may present. This project, looks like to me, is not for interstate traffic. It is for local traffic. And if it's going to benefit a development interest, that development interest ought to be the ones paying for it. And as a taxpayer also in Leon County, I'm not real sure I like the idea of the sales tax money going to that project. Anyway, that's my position.
Mr. Barr, could you clarify a point on that? Because when we've had discussions at the city, my understanding was that DOT liked this project specifically because it was going to relieve traffic off of the I-10 Thomasville exchange, and that they were, what basically came out at our briefing was that DOT is out of ideas for the I-10 Thomasville interchange, that whole quagmire, and that this was the route they were looking to go. Is that the case?
This could be part of the solution. They are looking at it in detail, the interchange, and this could be part of the solution to help relieve the Thomasville Road interchange and some relief to Mahan in the future as well. And just a clarification related to the sales tax, I think the sales tax committee or a sales tax group is looking possibly at the local road system to support the interchange as opposed to the interchange itself, is my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, on point.
And
The-
Mr. Maddox.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The study on whether it will relieve the other two I-10 interchanges is with the assumption that the 7,000-plus acres will not be fully developed. When you add in the fully developed, all three parcels, that's going to fill up the interchange. So my point is, and I think Commissioner Crowley's point is, those people that own that property need to participate in the solution, because once the property is developed, it will fill up the interchange. Now, should it not develop, and if all three property owners, the city of Tallahassee being one, want to enter a 163 agreement that puts their land in permanent conservation easements, then there's no problem, as far as I'm concerned. We build the interchange, and, there won't be a McDonald's there won't be a BP gas, there won't be all those other things at the I-10 interchange, but there won't be all the houses either that will fill it up, and yes, it would alleviate some of the congestion at the other two interchanges. However, I'm doubtful that they're willing to do that. So as such, I think we ought to all move forward together rather than just government.
Commissioner Van Camp.
Yeah, based on the information just shared there, looking even further in the future, of course, we see on the map the green, and we know that green means go, but where is green going to go eventually on, let's say, 20, 25 years from now? Because it certainly won't dead end there. My understanding is to go on up, come through this property when it's developed, come up to Roberts and Crump Road, and eventually over to Thomasville Road. If that's correct, then when that traffic comes there off of Thomasville Road coming out of Georgia, this could be as big a nightmare down here as it is at Thomasville Road and I-10 right now. Any comment looking beyond the dates that you gave us for this as to where that green is going to go?
I mean, we looked at some options of where that could be, and you hit it right on, that hitting eventually Thomasville Road could be a future down the road option. But we did not look at it in detail related to when it goes further north, or what the alignment would be, or where it would end up. I mean, we made some assumptions in our modeling, and the more you would connect to, the more traffic is going to be on that road, and the more impact it'll have on other facilities.
Commissioner Dozier.
Commissioner Zipper, I think.
What happened to you? I thought you were first.
No.
Oh, sorry, Commissioner Zipper.
I think Thomasville Road, if nothing else, teaches us a very good lesson that unless we get ahead of something, way ahead of something, we end up with Thomasville Road. So it seems to me there's an opportunity now for us to get ahead of it. At this point, whoever pays for it, we can figure that out. But right now, I think we need to move this forward. I know this doesn't require a vote, but I got to tell you, each year that goes by, this opportunity is going to just pass us by. I know several years ago, Commissioner Maddox, you were a driving force behind Blairstone Road. The number of people that fought that didn't want it to happen, that didn't think it was necessary, and now it's probably one of the best roads we have. And that clearly served, well, in this case, the southeast extension clearly served St. Joe, and at some point will probably benefit the English family, I would assume. But I think we should embrace this just so that we can get a good interchange designed. We can get it through an approval, hopefully, with the federal government. However it's funded, there's still some time to figure that out. But I'm just excited to finally see we're trying to work for alternatives other than a more congested, and quite frankly, I was just thinking about it as we were talking about all these sidewalks. Thomas Road, from a pedestrian standpoint, you can forget it. And I'm hopeful that when this interchange is designed, we at least keep that in mind, pedestrian traffic, mass transit, things of that nature. So I just want to get ahead of something, because right now we're behind.
And didn't you say 2035 was when you estimated this was going to be completed? Given that we're where we are today?
That was our study target year. I mean, it depends on a lot of factors of when it could be done. The quicker funds are available, the quicker it can be done. And certainly there is a process that has to be followed, which takes some time.
Well, I certainly remember hearing Mr. Reed say to the Sales Tax Committee that if we started today, it would be 17 years just to get through the permitting process and NEPA and all that. So
Tom Coe will still be alive.
perspective, just some perspective there, okay, on timing. Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you. I'll be brief. My earlier question was, because I don't have the sales tax committee proposal pulled up, but it seems like there was a lot more packed into that proposal than what we're seeing on this map. And while I do agree, and that the long-term need is for an interchange, and yes, alleviating congestion from Thomasville Road and other things is probably good. The sales tax is our best, in my opinion, way to address some of the internal connectivity issues that are going to be required for that local commitment. But I don't know if all of us or the sales tax committee yet know exactly what that minimum requirement is. And that's where the discussion is going to be. And for Leon County and City Commissioners, we're going to be seeing this in the next few months. We're going to be seeing a completed list from the sales tax committee and understanding, that they have more projects than they currently have money right now. I'm just curious, I wanted to, and I'm glad we're having this conversation today. I think it's important for us to have the conversation. As Commissioner Ziffer said, we've been having this for a long time, to make sure that if we do want the interchange, we at least get the minimum road network included in a list, even if, and to Commissioner Maddox's point, I agree, developers should be paying for portions of this as they've indicated they would. So I just think this is something coming to us quickly in the next few months on the sales tax side, and I want to be clear about what we need from this perspective so that we don't have a problem later on.
Okay, thank you. Mike, I have a question, and that is how much, this is a federal interstate system, so I would expect the federal government would have some bill associated with building this interchange.
There's
Invoice might be the best.
There's certainly, if it's something that federal government, state government sees as a big benefit, then certainly it's possible that funds could be found to do this. I'm not going to say that that it's going to happen from federal government, but certainly, it's a state and federal highway, and there's certainly an impact to the system without an interchange.
Okay, all right, thank you. Do you have a question?
Going to the earlier question of federal highway participation in this, while we do provide funds for roadways, we do not pick the roadways to be built. It is a federally funded but state and locally led program. So projects such as an interchange, they are considered to be of a high enough level of access that it would be eligible for federal funding, but that is a decision that is made here. So I want to be very clear about that.
I want to have a roll call vote that everyone heard that remark and that register. Did you all hear that? So it is up to us to make this a high priority, and in that way, we will get federal funding for this project. Thank you. With that, I think we're ready to have the executive director's report.
Yes, very quickly, I just wanted to bring to your attention two actions that were taken by the governing board of the MPOAC. As an attachment, you see their legislative priorities positions for 2014. That was the draft, but they added two additional things, of which there was a copy of the new positions provided. One of them is of high priority, is to allow state transportation trust fund money to be used for regional trail systems. And the other is to remove all references to limiting the number of members on the policy board of MPOs in the state of Florida. Those are the primary ones that came about. It won't affect us from that standpoint. The other one I just wanted to mention to you is I've been asked to sit on a panel discussion at the Smart Growth Conference in Denver in February to discuss what we've been doing with the Sustainable Communities Calculator. This is something of only about a handful of agencies throughout this country have been looking at, so it's a great opportunity for us to get national exposure. The money's in the budget, so if there's no objection, I'd like to attend that.
Do we need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Who made the motion? Commissioner Madison?
Maddox.
Commissioner Madison, Commissioner Scott Maddox made the motion, seconded by Commissioner Ziffer, I believe. All in favor of the motion to send Harry to Denver to talk about the sustainability calculator, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Did
Thank you very much.
How we're sending him?
Did we say he could come back?
Driving or?
UPS. going to mail him.
We'd like you to ride a bike so we can know how many sidewalks are there.
All right, Commissioners.
to them.
All right, where are we? We have citizens to be heard on unagenda, what's next? What's next? What's next? Where's the agenda? No, we have citizens to be heard on unagenda items. No, seeing none. Does anyone at the table have anything they want to share for consideration now or in the future? Good, thank you very much. With that, we're going to adjourn our meeting.
I said, hey.
No, I don't.
November 12th at 6:30 p.m. at the Renaissance Center. For more information, please call 891-6520. A Board of Adjustment Appeals meeting will be held on Thursday, November 24th at 1 p.m. at the Renaissance Center. For more information, please call 891